Welcome to Therapy, Coaching, and Dreams. I'm D. Kelley, and I'm here with my co-host, Jim Shalley. We're a coach and a therapist who love talking about how inner work can help you live with more awareness, purpose, and freedom. Welcome to the podcast. Welcome, Jim. I'm glad you're here with me. Last week, we spent some time talking about where we find our energy, whether it's a dynamic energy with a lot of movement, or whether it's more of a stabilizing energy, a little more static that organizes things, and how that expresses itself in our personality.
Before you finish that, it is interesting that when I use the term dynamic or static, people react to the static term as though it's a negative, almost always. And that's interesting because dynamic, when I use that phrase, they go, "Oh yeah, no, I'm kind of that." But if I use and say you're kind of static, it's like, what does that mean? I said, "Well, do you like change?" Well, no. Okay, well then that's kind of static, but it does have so I like the stabilizing part better, or bring order to things. I think that probably makes it less offensive to some people that think that static means I just sit around and stare at myself. No, it means that you don't like change much. And again, even that can feel negative. And so I've noticed over the years that when I use that terminology, the static personality will always kind of scrunch their nose up a little bit and go, "Well, that doesn't sound much fun." I go, "Well, no, it's life-giving. If you didn't have that, then not much would get done." So
It's very smart of you not to affirm their statement and say, "Yeah, you're not very much fun."
yeah, that's true.
I do like the term stabilizer because I think that very often that is the static posture's response to chaos, or to an overly expressed dynamism that creates a wake that nobody knows what to do with. The stabilizer, the organizer, the nurturer comes in and responds to that in incredibly powerful ways, and sometimes world-changing ways. So you're right. I get the same thing. So I often tie stabilizer or nurturer to that static statement
Mhm.
because it is an energy. It's not an absence of energy. It's a way
No,
by
not at
which
all.
energy
Right.
gets expressed.
And it's good energy, again, used in good or not so good ways. I mean, it's useful or useless. Yeah.
Great. So let's get into some of the distinctions within that dimension, of how people express this with a masculine or feminine energy itself. So we often say this, but needs to be said again. This is not a reference to men versus women or male versus female. Everyone
Absolutely.
has masculine and feminine energy within them
Yeah.
and can access those parts if they desire to. Doing so, I believe, can create a more balanced approach to life. So I'm going to ask you, Jim, provide some distinction between the masculine energy or approach to dealing with life and the feminine energy or approach. Not so much just yet whether it's dynamic or stabilizing, but just kind of the differences of the feminine within me or the masculine within me. What am I tapping into when I'm tapping into either one of those?
Very generally, I would say that the the masculine is about accomplishment and the feminine is about relationships. Obviously, accomplishment has relationship dynamics to it, and the feminine has accomplishment to it. They're not mutually exclusive, uh, but they really do complement each other in that sense. So every masculine decision, they would say, has a relational dynamic to it, and every feminine would say every decision they make has uh, has accomplishment to it. It's just the nuances of it. The basic bias is the masculine wants to achieve things, the feminine wants to understand how it affects relationships. It's almost like this. The masculine knows somebody needs to be confronted. The feminine will help you understand how to say it tactfully because it affects the relationship. I would say people are using AI almost in that form. They will put in symptoms or they'll put in ideas, and AI will give a really pretty balanced expression of what that's giving value to all aspects. And I'm not sure, this is a different discussion, if AI really is on the edge of trying to merge the masculine and feminine energies. Anyway, that's a sidebar. I don't want to take up on a tangent of like,
Yeah.
We are AI a little bit.
Yeah. Let me refer you to our other podcast, which
Yeah.
is done completely by AI and is far more popular than ours.
And quite insightful, I might say.
Yeah. So I'd like to step into this a little bit further by maybe identifying blind spots. What's the blind spot of somebody who is more dominated by a masculine expression, and what are the blind spots of somebody who's more dominated by a feminine expression?
The blind spot of the masculine is, regardless of how it affects people, I'm going to do it.
Mm.
An example of that would be someone who buys a company and fires everybody. They don't tend to how it affects everybody. They would say they don't have a heart, but that's the extreme example of the masculine, where they just basically do it, don't care how it affects anybody. The feminine, on the other hand, almost become immobilized because no matter what decision they make, it's going to affect somebody negatively. So then they don't make a decision. Again, that's the extreme. Or because it affects feelings, we need to give everybody a break where we don't hold people accountable. We understand there's a deeper motivation. There's a lot of pain there. That's the extreme feminine. Obviously, you can see the separation. So the masculine comes in to try to make up for the feminine, which is too relationally driven, by becoming, we can't do that anymore. Let's get rid of those people. Whereas the feminine fights for, wait a minute, it's gonna hurt the whole family. It doesn't matter. They've gotten away with it forever. That's kind of the extremes of those two energies.
Yeah. Now, I would suggest, or maybe I'm asking for your reaction, that the strong, dynamic feminine voice seems to me to be a strong voice for social justice, a prophetic voice, um, an artistic slant to it, but an artistic expression that might challenge power, that might give an alternative view. And sometimes that can have a negative effect on relationships, but it is I think, very strong dynamic approach.
Well,
Is
yeah.
that not true?
No, at the risk of becoming a little political, it's happening right now with the immigration system. I mean, sanctuary cities have its place because they're a reaction to what some would say, the cold-hearted approach of going in and ripping families apart and sending them back to their home countries. Whereas sanctuary cities were developed to kind of give them a safe space, regardless of what's happening in their lives, they can stay in this city. So yeah, we're at extremes with that. And that's what's so frustrating, is what's the balance of that as it plays out? Well, that's a great question. But
Yeah.
you're right. There is a lot of the good gets done when the masculine that just wants to get stuff accomplished and done goes too far, and then somebody always rises up to say, "Wait a minute, how is this affecting so many people?" Uh, I mean, again, the extreme example was uh, whether it was open or not. I don't know, the border, all the crossings at the border. It was relationally driven. They want to come to a better place and have a better life. Well, along with that, there are people that are coming in with nefarious uh, uh, thoughts about what they would like to do once they get here. So, how do you sort that all out? Well, one side errs on the side of everybody coming in, and we'll figure it out later. The other side says, no, we need to figure it out right now, and we're not letting anybody in. And in
Yeah.
my mind, that's where the culture's at largely. It's frustrating from my perspective to see it play out so dramatically and be at such odds that we can't sit down and have a conversation that makes some sense for everybody.
Yeah. What happens on a large cultural scale is what happens in individual family
Absolutely.
systems,
And
which
we've not and
then,
we've not and we've not handled that very well, which I think is why the larger expression is taken over. 'Cause we've not done our own work.
well, yeah, and I was going to say it's not happening in our own family system often because we're not doing the internal work ourselves.
Yeah.
So ultimately, if we're really wanting to change the world, we do so by doing our own personal inward work first.
Yeah, that's what we need to say every podcast, and then everybody will go, yeah, it's a lot of work." Okay, let's not do that. Let's just keep doing the crazy stuff we're doing. It is absolutely true. That's the unintegrated self is projected onto the larger culture, and we don't understand why all these things are happening because the individual hasn't taken responsibility for their own lives.
Yeah,
Okay, enough little sermonizing, but that's my bias as a therapist. It's like, whoa.
yeah, I agree with you. I think it's
I'm
worth
sure
saying every
dream
episode.
Yeah, and I'm sure in dreams that tries to come out in dreams. That's why I think your commitment to the dream work is so fascinating because that's exactly if we don't deal with it consciously, the dreams try to help us integrate that as well.
And we have a cultural bias that dreams are just the white noise of life. That
Absolutely.
they're an evolutionary artifact we don't need to pay attention to.
They're just
When in,
about to make anxiety and, frustrations and,
yeah,
you know.
and the invitation is there every night because we dream every night. Very few people remember them because they don't think they're important. And I agree, and I appreciate you mentioning it, that it's a great way to start if you're wanting to do that internal work is to become curious about your dreams and work with somebody who has enough insight to guide you as to how to do your own work. It's not universal, it's not the same for everyone. Dreams are, in my opinion, such a perfect pathway because they are subjective and they
Right.
are tailored exactly to the person who dreams them because they are that person's dreams and guiding us to greater balance if we can. Um, so I'm going to take you into the four quadrants that we sometimes reference. And I just want you to give us kind of a quick synopsis or quick characteristics, what this personality might look like, knowing that people fall all across the board with some combination of these different traits.
You might be able to help me out more with those because I think you have the list in front of I don't I left mine at home. So if I
Good.
miss some, you can fill in the blanks for me.
You bet. We've been talking about static and dynamic, masculine and feminine expressions. So let's just start with one of those combinations. Let's start, and we talked about this actually 2 episodes ago, but let's just do a brief synopsis of the masculine static. The masculine static, sometimes referred to as stabilizer.
Right.
Give
Yeah,
us some traits of that individual.
the real quickly, the 4 quadrants to remind the audience, I call them stir. Basically, when you start balancing them out, it stirs up a lot of stuff inside. So there's a stabilizer, there's the transformer, there's the initiator, and the responder. Well, the one you're talking about is the stabilizer. Again, we mentioned it, I think, last podcast that they bring order and structure to things. A police department, fire department, they have accountability as their root in some ways, that you hold people accountable to what they said they were going to do. That's the stabilizer. It's an absolutely essential force in the world. It gets misunderstood because they feel like it's restricting people's choices when really it isn't. It's basically bringing order to things. If I had to sum it up, they stabilize the world. The world is on its axis. It's rotating the right way. All of that stuff. That's what the stabilizer does. There are some
Great.
specific traits that expand that, but if I had to say, that's really what it.
It's great. So, since we're talking about the contrast between the masculine expression of energy and the feminine expression, let's stay with that masculine side and move toward what I think you refer to as the initiator, which is the masculine dynamic expression, right?
Right.
Give
Right.
us some characteristics of that approach to life.
They see life as accomplishment. I want to get stuff done. So whatever I have to do to make that happen, that's what I'm going to do. Um, so basically, it's accomplishing. It's producing.
Great. Okay. Shifting to the other side of this chart, if you have a visual of what it might look like, we're going to move to the more feminine expressions, the feminine energy of these two things. So let's talk about the nurture or the responders, what I think you referred to it as, the feminine static energy. Give us some characteristics.
Uh, the term responder sums it up. They basically respond to the world and sees what needs to have happen so that life can be more comfortable. That they bring an ease to life. In other words, what kind of food needs to be here? What kind of environment do we need to have? What kind of aesthetics? What's on the walls? All that stuff is a nurturing quality that basically sees how can I make my life better because of the surroundings that I have. Now, internally, it basically means you give people space and grace, and you always err on the side of grace, so that whatever problem they bring to you, you engage with that with the possibility of acceptance. So if I had to say one word, it would be acceptance.
Right. And I often think of any type of caregiver, somebody who is naturally drawn to
Yes,
caregiving fits
absolutely.
that
Yeah.
category. And again, it can be a man or a woman, but it is that energy that moves us toward responding, nurturing, accepting, caregiving.
Yeah, I would say that the term that you use, caregiver, probably sums it up a little better than the one that I use because I think that makes it uh, more universal. It's like caregiving. So I care for these people. So when they show up to my house, I'm going to have their favorite drink or whatever the small little thing is that lets them know that you're very observant about how to make their life better.
And I might add, if you're on the receiving end of that caregiving, that can just be a wonderful
Oh,
feeling.
oh, geez, you kidding me? If you show up and the very thing that you thought of that you wanted there and you didn't think it was gonna be there is there, you go, "Oh, wow, okay. I think I'm in love. This is great."
The feminine energy also has a very dynamic side. It is the transformer in your stir.
Yes, it is.
And so
It's a beautiful energy.
talk about what that looks like, how that gets expressed.
It's incredibly creative. Uh, it just sees the possibilities that can happen. It doesn't pay any attention to the rules and regulations at times. It's again the dynamic expression of that, like the dynamic expression of the masculine. It gets stuff. It like the masculine. It gets stuff done. The dynamic feminine in the transformer basically just has a great time. It just embraces life. It it knows no limits. Uh, and that's why they're typically married to a strong stabilizer that tries to help contain their energies. And it's the classic thing of the phrase that I came up with years ago is grow up what every woman wants a man to do and shut up what every man wants a woman to do. So I mean that- it's kind of a little too casual approach to therapy, but it often describes exactly what we're talking about. Yep.
Should that be the title of this episode, Grow Up and Shut Up?
Well, I've often toyed with the idea that would be a controversial, yet I think pretty interesting book to write because it's just, I mean, from my perspective, pretty true.
Let
The
me stay just for a moment longer with that transformer expression. I have found in my work that true transformers sometimes have very difficult lives because the culture, particularly Western culture, the culture that I've grown up in, doesn't know what to do with a transformer, that transforming voice that somehow doesn't see the laws of nature or the rules that everybody else seems to see and say things that sometimes feel mystical or off the wall. And if that's the case growing up and they're not in a nurturing environment, they can come out of adolescence um, not feeling like they fit or having been beaten up enough times that they're reluctant to really give in fully to that energy. Have you found that true?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, Again, to use kind of a current events, the discussion the last week or so of the disc jockey Howard Stern, where I think Sirius Radio is not going to they're going to offer him some money, but they don't think he'll take it because he's had a really expensive contract the last 20 years. Well, if you were to anything about Howard Stern, is that in the beginning he was Transformer extreme. Like there was nothing he would not try, he had nothing he would not say. He would push all the boundaries. Well, now the observation that's been made about him is he's gone the other extreme to where now he's very much a stabilizer in his life. So in my mind, that's what can happen from my perspective, perhaps unconsciously. If one expression is too extreme, almost always life will come along and you'll begin to express the other side of it.
Mm.
I think we almost always do that as we grow up. Some would say he grew up and embraced a value system that makes sense to him. Well, that's back to shut up, grow up. It's like, yeah, the transformer needs to grow up but they have a lot of fun and they push boundaries and they make things happen differently than what the masculine dynamic would do. They would bring order and it would look like they build buildings, whereas the transformer would probably build the building differently. Put the wall over here or the roof over here. It would be different. And that's why, again, back to our bias, which is how do you integrate all those energies?
Yeah. Yeah. You described a little bit the attractions that we sometimes have, the things that we might be lacking, we are attracted to. I think the more obvious ones, though I think it happens with all of these personality approaches, but the stabilizing masculine energy often attracted to the transforming feminine energy, embodying all of those things that the stabilizing masculine um, is intrigued by but doesn't really have. It comes across as mysterious. And how do you see the world that way? And there's this attraction to it. And that attraction is externalized. The challenge then is do the internal work of finding the voice in you that you're attracted to that can bring more balance to your life. And conversely, that the transformative feminine voice in somebody attracted toward an organizer that can take care of all of those details that that person doesn't have time for.
Right. And then to our larger point that we keep making over and over, which is if I don't do that, then then I will become, if I'm the stabilizer with the transformer, I will become exhausted because they will wear me out. And then I'll get so frustrated that they'll try to drag him into therapy, basically have the therapist help them see how important it is to not at 45 still want to do crazy stuff or still want to get high all the time or whatever it is. But again, the natural attraction for the other two is the initiator and the responder,
Right.
because the initiator will go out and build a kingdom, and the responder will absolutely enable that and make excuses and say, you need to go to work. That's great. And they stay home and take care of the family, to be a little stereotypical. But again, that has an endpoint where typically the responder is exhausted because they haven't gotten back from the masculine dynamic that they wanted, which was tended to and cared for. Remember, we
Yeah.
give away what we want. And again, that's the extreme. So when a woman comes in, typically it's a woman who's depressed at 45 or 50, I will tell you it's because she's given and given and given, and she hasn't gotten back what she wanted. And that's really hard for her to acknowledge because she thinks she's doing it genuinely and that she didn't expect anything back from it. And they would rather get depressed or anxious than acknowledge that, which is fascinating.
Yeah. Wow, that's a great example. And I will add, I know you've already referenced this, but I have worked with couples where that strong initiating energy is the female in the relationship,
Yes.
and the nurture is the masculine, and the dynamic's the same.
It is.
It's just being expressed through different individuals within the relationship.
And I think that's happening more and more, like the stay-at-home husband who takes care of the family and takes care of the kids, yeah. Mhm.
And in same-sex relationships, the
Absolutely.
dynamic exists.
Absolutely true. There's no real difference. And I do think that's good to reemphasize the fact that these are all a part of all of us.
Right.
I have a bias where I talk in specific as far as male, female, but it really is inside of every individual. How do we access it? How do we know where to go at any given moment? And also realizing that we're a little older. So if I'm, 30, 35, trying to sort all this stuff out, I have a couple right now, they're in their late 20s. They have grasped a hold of this, and it makes so much sense to them that they're just so excited about how it plays out every day. And they have a pretty good balance now, but they can see how it can get so much better when they understand it more specifically.
Well, that's it for this episode of Therapy, Coaching, and Dreams. If you're enjoying the podcast, we'd love for you to follow, rate, or share it with somebody who might appreciate it as well. Thanks for being here. And until next time, keep growing, stay curious, and take good care of yourself.
That was good. I like that last part. Stay curious. Can you teach curiosity?
Wow, that's a great question.
I don't know. That's just it. It's almost a built-in trait.
Yeah. Wow, I guess I'd never asked myself that question. I do think maybe if you give, maybe in contrast, so it sets it up in context, meaning that instead of being critical or afraid of it, what if you were curious about it? So in a dream, you've got an image that's frightening. Instead of focusing on the fear, what if you were just curious about why it showed up, what it's trying to communicate? So you give curiosity in contrast to
Yeah. No,
what's keeping you from doing it.
right. It'd be a way of almost identifying curiosity for people that they don't naturally identify it.
Yes,
That word.
yes.
Yeah.
Well, that's it for this episode of Therapy, Coaching, and Dreams. If you're enjoying the podcast, we'd love for you to share it with someone who might appreciate it as well. And if you are interested in working with either of the co-hosts, you can do so at their respective websites, Dr. Shalley at afccounselors.com or Dr. Kelley at inyourdreams.coach. Thanks for being here. And until next time, keep growing, stay curious, and take good care of yourself.
Yeah, no, it's good stuff.